This week's winner, companies sitting on a real catalyst. Tempus AI ripped on a partner's trial data. This week's loser, defense IPOs and the AI infrastructure trade.
And with the summer market officially winding down while Anthropic teases an October deal, the question is whether the fall finally delivers the mega IPO everyone's been circling all year. Let's get into it with this week's winners and losers.
Welcome to the IPO Winners and Losers podcast. I'm your host, Avery Marquez, Renaissance Capital's Director of Investment Strategies.
And I'm Matt Kennedy, Senior Strategist at Renaissance Capital.
Quick note before we dive in, this podcast is for informational purposes only, and nothing we discuss should be taken as investment advice or a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any security. Past performance does not guarantee future results, and one cannot invest directly in an index. For the full disclosure, check the end of this recording. So let's walk through the week because while the deal calendar is going quiet, the headlines are anything but. With the last major IPO of the summer in the books, the annual August pause is officially here. So for the next couple of weeks, it should be light on pricings and heavy on filings. So we're really looking for the pipeline to give us better visibility into fall activity.
Now, the tape did pull back, the IPO index off nearly 5% this week, mostly AI infrastructure getting dinged on bond market volatility. Plus, we saw that the last major deal of the summer was kind of a dud.
So yeah, it was a bit of a split screen this week. Summer went out with a whimper, but the setup into September keeps getting richer by the day. That said, let's start with a name that's dominating every conversation right now, Anthropic, which is reportedly firming up plans for a possible October listing. So I actually saw that it could file as soon as the end of the month. And the real eye popper here is that reported 14 times jump in quarterly revenue and a raise that could come in above SpaceX.
Yeah, that 14x year over year increase, especially at this scale, is just totally unheard of. We're in uncharted territory. And then just to frame that deal size for a second, that means Anthropic will come in above the $75 billion dollars that SpaceX raised to be the largest IPO in history. So two deals alone this year are expected to outraise every single year on record. 2026 is truly the year of the mega IPO, assuming it goes public. The growth number is just absolutely remarkable. That's an enterprise AI thesis compounding faster than almost anyone modeled. Plus, you've got positive adjusted earnings. This looks like a deal for the ages.
Yeah, it reframes the whole fall, assuming that it, yeah, actually happens. But yeah, if it actually does print in October at that scale, it's not just another mega deal. It resets the ceiling again that we just saw reset a couple months ago. And I think it's especially meaningful with OpenAI eventually coming down the pike and followed by that growing wave of AI unicorns.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is a lot up in the air here until we get that filing from Anthropic. A lot can change over the next 30 days. But, let's be real. Anthropic could go public basically no matter what happens in the market. Uh, but if they want to maximize their valuation, then the macro has to cooperate. Even with the star power that is behind that name, a raise of this size is going to want a deep, calm market to clear. We've watched IPO timelines slip repeatedly this year. I don't think it'll happen. I think Anthropic's going in October or sooner, but it's entirely up to them.
Yeah, and I think you have to really look at the trajectory of the company because I think like that tells you a lot. Speaking of like the timeline slipping and the expectation that that's not going to happen for this company, you just look at the private rounds that have cleared. There've been it just cleared the markets easily,
Mhm.
and now the revenue is catching up to that valuation. We'll see if it really justifies the reported $2 trillion target, but. It's the story of it's the version of the story that the bulls have been waiting for.
Mhm.
But Anthropic isn't filing into an empty room. The backlog behind it keeps filling in. We had quite a few new additions to the fall list: General Atlantic, Nscale, Cacao Mobility, if I'm saying that right. So a lot of variety in these names.
Yeah, I think that's the part that I like. You've got an asset manager, an AI cloud infrastructure name, and then a Korean mobility platform. So not just one theme, that's genuine breadth lining up behind the mega caps. We also had an insurance company, a solar power project developer jump the gun and file publicly this week. So even more filings are expected next week too.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we see kind of that big rush because it would be great to see that nice fall pipeline building out.
When I'm out on
Um,
vacation, that's when all the work's
yeah.
gonna hit.
But then we had another big headline. I know I mentioned OpenAI earlier, but its CFO was in the news this week playing down the near-term IPO timeline. Reports were saying public in 2027, possibly sooner.
Yeah, OpenAI CFO Sarah Fryer telling employees that it will IPO on its own timeline. After racing with Anthropic to go public, that sounds to me like they've sort of thrown in the towel while at the same time saying, hey, we didn't want to be first anyway. We've talked about this before, how both companies, it seemed like they both wanted to be first to market, to really define the narrative. If OpenAI goes second, investors may not view it as a must-have stock, especially if the growth and margins are below Anthropic. But a small silver lining is that, if investors question OpenAI's losses, going second would let them point to Anthropic's adjusted margins and say, see, we can get there too. We're just 1 year behind.
Yeah, I think that's from what the reports have said. I think that's like the only card that they can play.
Mhm.
It seems like Anthropic is just coming out on top. But as you said earlier, we really just got to see the public filing. I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of, hearsay and leaks, but that's the case with pretty much every IPO. You need to see the public filing.
With the
Uh,
adjusted operating margin being positive for Anthropic, I'm wondering if it's an adjusted operating margin, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I actually saw, I don't know, a report recently, but talking about how these AI companies are kind of making depreciation like a footnote, where they're able to kind of really, I don't know, expand the timeline of how they're depreciating these chips
Mhm.
to uh, make their financials look better. So I
Yeah.
think that's going to be interesting seeing Anthropic and then OpenAI, how they're kind of like doing the math in a audit friendly way.
Well, at least these footnotes will be highly scrutinized. I'm sure these prospectuses are going to get a very
hmm
close eye.
Yeah. But either way, I think the read for the whole situation is the same, that assuming no twists, the fall mega IPO slate is Anthropic's to anchor now, and OpenAI is giving itself optionality rather than committing. But before we get to the fall, let's close the book on the summer. It didn't exactly go out on a high note. We
Hmm.
had defense roll-up Lyntris complete the last major IPO until September. It downsized, priced below the range, and then finished the week down 10%. That deal was led by Evercore, which isn't a bank you usually see at the top of the syndicate. So, for what that's worth.
hmm And some context here too. It walked straight into a defense sell-off. Several recent defense IPOs were already trading poorly, so timing may have kept some people on the sidelines. I know our research analyst Monica Lee was quoted in the Wall Street Journal saying that the pricing dynamics looked more sector-driven than company-specific.
Yeah, that was a great quote from Monica. And it's an important lesson for both issuers and investors. Sector sentiment can sink an otherwise fine deal. Defense was the theme for months. Now money's rotating out and the latecomers are paying for it.
Yeah, a little bit of a last one out gets caught dynamic. Not saying that the company itself was an all-star or anything. I mean, they had net losses and a fair amount of debt, so you kind of have to believe that it can continue to grow the top line into the double digits while it also expands margins. But, decent company, bad backdrop, easy to just sit back and see how it trades.
hmm Yeah, and if those, I guess, the broader tailwinds, pick back up again, then I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
But that rotation shows up on the scoreboard as well because this was a red week under the surface. The IPO index ended the week down 4.7%, lagging the S&P 500, which was off just 1.4%. AI infrastructure was the main drag yet again. But the new culprit is bond market volatility.
Yeah, that is the macro variable to flag. For the first time, this is less about Iran and more about rates. When the bond market gets choppy, the most rate sensitive, long duration AI names feel it first.
Yeah, and then we had the standout loser in the index, buy now, pay later giant Klarna, which was down 31% on lowered guidance. So it's clear that the market's short fuse on any guide down is still clearly intact.
And that was despite a strong quarter. I think it's a rare beat and lower quarter. They had forecast a soft German market for the coming year, but no surprise, the results cut the guide, get punished immediately. And then the other four losers this week were from the AI infrastructure sector. So either direct or indirect power, data centers, etc. And then on the flip side, the winners tell the other half, Tempus AI up 40% on positive results from partner Moderna's cancer trial. A genuine catalyst, rewarded hard.
And that was incredible news and then an
Yeah.
incredible performance from Moderna.
And it just took the every related company with it too.
Hmm.
It's like going for a ride.
Yeah. And in that winners column, there were also a handful of digital asset names, which we have not seen recently.
Mhm.
So it's not blanket risk off. Money's still chasing the catalysts, an opportunity where it can find it in spaces like crypto. It's kind of just moving out of the rate sensitive infrastructure, at least
Mhm.
for now.
Yeah, and crypto had pulled back hard before this too, so I think
Hmm.
it may have been arguably oversold.
Mm. So zooming out, what does a quiet red week actually tell us? Some are closed soft, a dud final deal, and a down tape. But the pause itself is seasonal, so nothing structural.
And then the fall is loading up. Anthropic, likely in October, potentially the largest IPO ever, with a broadening watch list behind it. So the pipeline got deeper in spite of a bad week for new stocks.
The macro tell has shifted, though. For months, it was geopolitics. Now it's the bond market. And that could be the swing factor for every AI infrastructure name still to come.
And the tape hasn't gotten any more forgiving. Klarna proves that a guide down is still going to get you crushed, while Tempest proves a real catalyst gets rewarded. So not totally risk off, just more discerning.
And with those discerning investors in mind, what are we watching through the rest of the summer and into the fall? Anthropic, first and foremost, the public filing could be imminent, so we'll see whether that October target actually holds. It's poised to be the headline event of the fall.
And then filings, filings, filings. This is the heavy filing stretch. Who lines up behind Anthropic? Who gets out ahead of it? In the next few weeks, that'll tell us how deep September and October will really get.
Mhm. And the bond market's read through to AI infrastructure. Is this week's pullback going to be short lived, or is it the start of a rate driven D rate in the most stretched names?
All right, summer's in the books. Now we find out what the fall wants to buy.
Yep, that's it for this week's winners and losers. Get the full newsletter in your inbox by clicking the link in the description. And hey, Matt, you want to read the disclosure for me?
Sure. Um, This podcast is for informational purposes only. Renaissance Capital's statements should not be considered investment advice or a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any particular security. Certain of the statements contained may be statements of future expectations and other forward-looking statements that are based on Renaissance Capital's current views and assumptions and involve known and unknown risks and uncertainties that could cause actual results, performance, or events to differ materially from those expressed or implied in such statements. Past performance does not guarantee future results, and one cannot invest directly in an index.